nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast. It is myself, John Anderson, at the helm again tonight. We've got quite an action-packed show to get through tonight. We've got lots and lots of content, but let's introduce who we've got along tonight. We have got the terrible twosome themselves. We've got Craig Manson. Craig, good evening.
Good evening. How are we doing?
Not too bad, buddy. Not too bad. And we've got what looks like fresh from, let's call it, training. Will we? We've got Jonny McGinty. Jonny, welcome.
Good evening. How are we doing? I haven't been training tonight. I'm just waiting.
You've not been training?
No, I trained last night.
You trained last night. What, have you not changed?
No, I just always dress like this, John.
I hope he's going. I hope he's going tomorrow night because my boy's home and my boy's going back to training. So it'll be interesting to see if Jonny and Logan will be up for doing Broncos.
Do you think Logan will take him? Yeah,
I'll tell you, I'll not be teaming up with Logan for any fitness.
Those of you who don't know Craig's son, he's quite a fit young gentleman. He looks like he certainly knows his way about a Bronco or two. So I think that's for a man of your experience, Jonny. Let's call it that. I think that would be a wise decision.
He's been really nice to you there, Jonny, with your experience. That's awesome. I like that.
Did you see what I mean with that? Yeah, I know. I'm obviously feeling very pleasant and clearly chipper tonight. So not.
I'm going to keep that one in my back pocket.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say. Yeah, we'll see.
I've got a bit much experience to be doing that.
Absolutely. Let the game come to you, Jonny. That's how you do it. Anyway, welcome everybody who's joining us live. And if you're listening back to this, I hope your morning commute is not too bad. I hope the roads are nice and clear and you are blasting on your way to work or wherever you may be going. If you're joining us for the first time, again, where the hell have you been? But welcome. You can head over to we've got a couple of banners here for those of you watching live, but you can head over to scottishrugbyblog.co.uk to support the blog and see any of the latest news and views on Scottish Rugby. You can also support the podcast by going over to patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, where £3 a month will get you exclusive content, including the legendary, the mythical Hands in the Ruck section, which is where myself and the troops will put, I presume tonight, we'll be putting some wrongs to right, shall we say, after the exploits of some at the weekend. It should be good fun. Looking forward to it. You can, of course, if you're one of the socials, you can head over to Facebook, where we're Scottish Rugby Podcast, where we are still alive. We have not been taken down this week, which is great. Unlike last, you can head to Twitter at Scott Rugby Pod, or YouTube, or Twitch, or any other of these youth channel things where you can find content on us. I don't know, does Cammy still do the TikToks? because he was going through a wee TikTok phase for a while, wasn't he?
He has been doing a
I
few
don't think he's done
TikToks
one for a while.
Yeah.
You've got to get him back onto the TikToks. You know, that's the kids with their attention span of like 30 seconds. They've, you got to get a bit of TikToks.
And the more experienced people like myself,
hilariously, I don't
have
think
quite a
Charlie
short
had the attention
attention
span to keep up TikTok.
Indeed. So, as I said, we've got a couple of things to get through tonight. We'll just we'll come to the comings and goings in the squad after this, but obviously the main event of the weekend, Scotland-France at Murrayfield. I'm not going down this corporate nonsense route. I refuse to sanction that in any way, shape, or form. And it is hilarious watching the people trying to like remember what they're meant to call it. It is desperately funny to me. But
fair play. Sione just called it Murrayfield, by the way. Did you see that?
He did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, he had no. Yeah, go on, Sione. Love it. So let's come to you first, Johnny. At halftime, our group chat was a place to behold. It was a place of despair, if you will. Talk us through what was the plan that first half? What were Scotland doing?
Is the bus has hit the server again, I think.
Hey, we're back.
Again?
We're back. There we go.
Hey, did you catch the question?
I caught the start of it. There were some fairly unhappy campers at halftime on Saturdays.
Talk us through Scotland's game plan in that first half.
Well, I quite charitably was saying that it felt like it wasn't the game plan that anyone expected to see from Scotland. That possibly there was some things being tested and tried out, and they wanted to put themselves into a bit of a different situation and try some things that they maybe weren't that comfortable with. And it didn't really go very well, did it? So it seemed to be sort of like back to plan A in the second half. And I think we probably saw more of what you'd expect from Scotland in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the second half than we saw in the entire first half. It was much, much better. I've seen a few clickbait articles, interviews with Darcy saying, this is what Finn said at half time, but I've not clicked any of them yet. I don't really have much interest in that sort of nonsense, to be honest. But interested to see that they're all saying it was Finn's captaincy at half time that kind of pulled them up for the second half.
Yeah, it was interesting on the park, Craig, watching obviously Finn Russell in his first game as captain. I know a lot of people were concerned about how he would take to the role. Would it be, would it essentially detract from the day job? But how did you think he went as captain?
You see, the problem you have is that Finn Russell playing to a game plan that he's not all that fussed about produces fairly poor play. And then once it gets to that point where everything's going wrong and everything's looking stale, etc., and people turn around and go, right, okay, Finn, just do what you want. Or what is perceived to be go and do what you want, Finn. That's when we seem to see fireworks and everything seems to work. I think it's just been they tried to do a lot of work within the forwards. They want to try and match and push the French around, maybe for preparing for South Africa. You never know. There was a lot of kicking involved, but it just didn't. With France, I don't think you should be giving them a lot of ball. You should be keeping the ball to yourself. And so it seemed to be. It just seemed to be misfiring completely. And then all of a sudden they had a halftime chat and the shackles were off,
Yeah. Johnny, how good were that French team though? Because I know, like, certainly me and Ian last week, we kind of went out and said it's a young French team, quite inexperienced. Scotland should be targeting that for not an easy win, but Scotland should be winning that game. And obviously at halftime, I'm sitting with my head in my hands and getting ready for the humble pie online. But just how good were that French side? And did Scotland win that second half, or was that France taking the foot off the gas? I don't know.
He's gone again. He seems to have a bit of
there
we go.
If that's the third France team, then I'm away again.
Have a go.
Hey, I'm back again. No, if that's the third or even second, I'm away again.
No, you're okay. We can hear you.
Back. I don't know what's going on. There's not even anyone watching telly in my house. France are going to win the World Cup, essentially. Like that was a really, really good team for being not France's first choice. Jalabert still in there, Brice Dulin still in there, some fairly serious business forwards in there. They've got a lot of depth, and I don't know whether Scotland were guilty of showing up and expecting that they were just going to roll over France because it was a France reserve team, but that reserve team was no joke. I think Scotland actually did go out and win it. If it was the French starters, possibly Dupont and Ntamack wouldn't have let Scotland back in the game in the way that the guys who were playing on Saturday did. But I wouldn't be looking at it and thinking, oh, geez, that was a joke team and they really ran us close, because that was a good team. And they played very well.
And that's the thing, Craig. Shaun Edwards spoke after the match and he was saying, obviously, France have a reasonably good idea who their 23 is. They've got a good idea who their full noise is. And almost they're using these games as a chance for the B team to get a place in the squad and try and get involved. Almost as that first step. If you're in the 33, then you're one injury away from getting a call up. You're one injury away from a start. What do you expect to see this weekend from France? Do you think Shaun Edwards is playing mind games there, or will we see another fairly mixed French team?
I think you're going to see full noise, to be perfectly honest. Full noise in France in front of their home fans. They'll be demanding a win, especially after last weekend. I have to agree with Jonny. Anyone who says that's it was a second string side, but anyone that thinks that a second string French side is going to be useless has to really think again, because they're all playing in the top 14, one of the best leagues in the world, and they are they just need to come together a little bit more. I think also the fact that it's almost a repeat of the game that we played against a full noise side. In the Six Nations, where Grant Gilchrist got sent off, and we came back and were really a line-out throw away from winning that game. So I think we're just getting them comfortable for a little while and then coming back at them. I'm being flippant, but I think we've played well against them in the second half. We were quite, our attack was quite something. I was really impressed with what we were doing, and I think I certainly wouldn't walk away from that game thinking it was an easy game.
No, it definitely wasn't an easy game, Jonny, and obviously made all the more difficult, given that Scotland played a chunk of the second half with 14 men. If you've been living under a rock and haven't seen the game, spoiler alert, Xander has done a Wales once again and kind of come into a ruck too high. There's been head contact. We said at the time, Jonny, red cards, like straight up, we said he's in trouble at the time. Obviously, they used the bunker system, which has been trialled out just now and will be used for the World Cup, where the referee gave a yellow card with a view that it would then be reviewed. Talk us through the incident, because we've had discussion in the background about this, but talk us through the incident. Talk us through where does Xander stand in that one?
It's it's a fairly stuck-on red card. There are a couple of things that go in his favour, and certainly we know this week have ended up going in his favour, which is that he does look like he's bound, and then Bougarit puts his head up, and then Xander puts his head and then his shoulder into Bougarit's head. And like, plain and simple, you cannot do that. That's like very straightforward. You can't make contact with somebody's head, whether it be in a ruck of the tackle or whatever. You can't do it. Initially, I was a bit sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is exactly the same as the Wales one, and he's in serious trouble now." But having seen a couple of replays and watched it a few times, it is a little bit different because he does kind of manage to get himself bound a little bit. Bougarit's head comes back up as he's binding on, and he kind of clips him in the head with both his head and his shoulder once he's bound to the ruck, which has helped him out a little bit, just purely in the fact that he then got cited for a different law. But that is twice now he's done very similar things, albeit not the same thing by the letter of the law. And I think we have to say this has got to be the very last time, as far as Xander's concerned.
Well, we'll maybe touch on the view of certain sections of Scottish rugby fandom. Whether
I'm going to just tell you right now, we will definitely touch on that.
Yes, I fear we might. Yes, Craig. So counter argument: French player's holding on to the ball illegally. The French player he's lifted his head as contact's made and has bellowed like a Johnny Sexton to make sure that all and sundry were aware that it was head contact. It's what was your view on all that shenanigans, and do you think that contributed to the slightly lenient citing that we've seen?
I think there's apart from maybe citing that Xander's works for the same charity as Owen Farrell. I think it's a difficult one because I don't, no matter what Bougarit's done in that ruck, being hit by a shoulder and a head into your face, etc., it's a red card. It doesn't matter what anyone says. I think the issue, I felt Bougarit's head came up, and there was quite a lot of time for Xander to change his attitude. But on the other side of things, we're not there. It's a split-second decision. We obviously pile a fair bit of pressure on these guys because it's their job. They're paid to do it. They should be able to change direction fairly quickly at a second's notice. But it is a difficult thing when you're when you're almost 100 kgs or you're a little bit over, and you're coming in because you've got to hit a ruck because everyone tells you, if you don't hit a ruck, you're going to be, you're going to be fighting for your place. And also in the first half, the forwards weren't hitting the rucks quick enough, and they were giving France too many glimmers of ball to fight over. So I think there's quite a lot of contributing factors to what happened to Xander. Unfortunately, he does attract a few penalties. Unfortunately, he's had a red card for a similar incident, so automatically he's up on the chopping block, and he's being being hung, drawn, and quartered before he's even spoken his piece. I think that's where we all have to take a breath at times and say, well, actually, there's a lot of different things that are going on. Just as you said, John, with the way that Bougarit was in the ruck, he doesn't bring his head up, then I don't think it's a red card. And I think Xander was going in and he was binding on. But on the other side of things, did Xander need to be into that ruck? Because whether, depending on which side of the channel you are, either Bougarit's winning a penalty or he's causing a penalty. So
I think you've made a very good point there as well, Craig. During that actually, right. So Xander in terms of whether he should or shouldn't go into that, there's almost a decision making that's probably been influenced by the fact Scotland at that point were, still down significantly in the game and had been absolutely smashed in that first half. Now, we've all been in rugby dressing rooms where you've been down at halftime and you've taken a bit of a pasting. There's no way that, so Gregor Townsend in the press, the way he said it was, there was just a couple of messages and we just walked through the messages in a calm and concise manner. No one's telling me in a world that De Villiers is not in there absolutely smashing heads at halftime, because the forwards were overpowered, under, just completely blown off that park in that first half. So I wonder if that's contributed to Xander's mindset, where it is, yes, I don't need to be in this space, but I'm showing them I'm up for this, so I'll go and smash it. And it's a bit stupid, but I can maybe see the reasoning behind it. A bit stupid might be, again.
I think we said this after Xander's red against Wales, is that reds in that sort of situation come down to, I would put the final responsibility for that on the coaches, because the coaches need to make more of an effort to say to players, if the ball's lost or the ruck's completed, don't bother. We need to get out of this mindset of hit everything, smash every ruck, compete for every ball, because when Xander gets there, as he's arriving at that ruck, he should be thinking, nah, actually, there's nothing there for me.
Yeah.
And then he's not getting sent off. But he's not being coached like that. Coaches aren't telling players, be smart about the rucks you hit. If the ruck's finished, don't bother. They're telling them, go and compete for every ball and let's see what we can get. And what he was going to get there was a red card. So why are you doing it?
Yeah, and the French had, looking at the first half, there was a hell of a lot of slow rollaways with the French so the Scotland players were going into them. The French were putting a tackle in. There was a slow rollaway which really held the support players up getting into the ruck, which was allowing them to jackal and get the ball. They weren't able to clear the jackler or protect the ball as quickly as they should have, and so you can, in my opinion, you can feel the pressure building. You can feel the anger building up inside and the frustration building up because they can't do the job because the French are quite slow at rolling away, which is exactly what I'm sure they've been coached to do.
Yeah.
So that's where, but again, it's one of those situations. He's 2 inches lower or an inch lower, hits that ruck, there's nothing wrong,
So I think we're all agreed, it is a nailed on red card. It's contact with the head. I'll come to you first, Johnny. So with that in mind, the incident early doors with Ben White, there was a penalty only, but there was a clear, yes, Ben White is falling, but there was clear shoulder to head with force, and it's a swinging arm as well. For me, at the time, I was surprised it wasn't looked at more, and it almost felt like it's almost the first hit out of the season. So for a lot of these guys, so it was like, well, it's the first 10 minutes. They're just finding their feet. And I thought the game was going to be refereed slightly differently because of that. What was your take on that incident? Do you think France got away with that?
Absolutely. And that is a nailed on idea of what we've got the bunker for, as far as I'm concerned. It was difficult to see when it happened, but from the first replay, you could see a swinging arm and you could see contact to Ben White's head. So for me, if I'm Ben O'Keefe, I'm giving a yellow and let the bunker sort it out, because that is head contact and it was a swinging arm and it was reckless and it was coming from a long way away. It's what we've got this whole system for. It is now. We're now into the law trials of below the sternum tackles. I don't know if they're doing it for the World Cup. I know we are certainly doing it.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody who played last week, and he said that the problem for them was as soon as they got tired, their tackles started slipping up.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the first 10 minutes of a game, and an international player should not be so tired they can't make a proper tackle. in the first 10 minutes. I would have used the bunker for that, and maybe he would have got away with it. I don't think he would have. The other thing I would have done if I was the Scotland coaching staff, by the way, is take Ben White off immediately after that. I don't know why they tried to make him run off his ankle at the same time.
Especially when he's carrying an injury into the game, as they've said, he's been carrying an ankle injury in camp. Craig, we've mentioned the bunker a few times, and we've tried to explain it to people maybe not aware of what it is. As I said, essentially you've got an opportunity for the referee will give a yellow card with a view that the incident, they've then got 8 minutes to review the incident, and the yellow card can then be upgraded if it's worthy. Upgraded to a red card. How did you think? We've seen this now in action. What do you think of the bunker system? And was it effective at the weekend?
Yeah, I think it's one of the law changes I'm very happy with. It takes away the to and fro and the horrendously boring. Right, bring the camera back on me and I'll talk you through this, all sort of thing that goes on with the TMO and with the referee. It's make a quick decision and then move on. The only issue I have is who else is while the TMO is sitting reviewing this particular foul play incident, when the game's going on, who else is watching the game? That's my only concern.
It's not the TMO. There's a fifth person.
It's a separate.
The bunker and the TMO are
okay.
separate people. Yeah, which I think is brilliant.
Okay,
that's a really good way of doing it.
Yeah. So on my side of things, I think going back to the Ben White incident, I think if he wasn't falling, it was a red. I think it was a yellow at most. But then it's you send it to the bunker for review. But I think I do believe, for me, the swinging arm was the biggest issue. The swinging arm came in, and it came in fairly heavy and struck him quite heavily. So because he was losing height, they would probably bring it down to yellow. But I do think that we're seeing a little. Everyone's talking about Ben. The Southern Hemisphere refs are reffing up here. The English refs are reffing the Rugby Championship at the moment, or were or UK refs, I should say, or European. So I think you're seeing a little bit of difference with the referees from the Southern Hemisphere, because they tend to err on the other way with swinging arms and high tackles and things like that. So it's one of those things of trying to get all the referees on the same page. For me,
No, I think that's absolutely right, and I know there's been some criticism of O'Keefe and his performance at the weekend. I don't think he was necessarily biased to either team. I think he was just he got a couple of decisions wrong, like we would expect referees to do. I think the big one was
we have to remember as well that this is World Cup warm up for the referees as well.
Exactly,
and this is the first time they've used the bunker. So in all of the teams are now getting themselves ready for the World Cup and getting used to new systems and getting used to new things and getting themselves ready to go into a World Cup. The referees are doing exactly the same. So I as in the same way that I'm not massively upset about any results as long as we have a decent performance. I'm not going to go mad about the referees or anything that happens with the decision making or anything, because they're getting used to this all and they're getting themselves ready for World Cup as well. So as long as it's better when the World Cup starts, happy days.
I think also I'm quite a fan of Ben O'Keefe. I think he's a good referee. The big thing for me is he's quicker. He speeds up a little bit, and he's also a very clear communicator, which I like.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. So the way we've been talking for the first 30 minutes of this podcast, it's been a little bit doom and gloom, despite the fact Scotland were victorious in this match. Obviously, an absolutely massive comeback, Johnny, in that second half, and kept France scoreless. At times, played some absolutely wonderful rugby. Just talk us through what your takeaways were from the second half.
Yeah. I think we've made a big deal about it is World Cup warm-ups. It was our full noise team. We maybe weren't going through our full game plan in the first half. The first half realistically wasn't a good enough performance. I think we could say that quite comfortably. At the same time, I do think that as much as the victory might not matter in a World Cup warm-up, I think that the manner of that victory is really important for Scotland. Scotland have been a team that, until very recently, quite a few of us, myself especially, have levelled the accusation of being psychologically and mentally not very well prepared and probably one of the weaker aspects of their game. So the manner of that victory for me is really, really important. Whether we won or not is not a massive concern of mine, like it's a World Cup warm-up, but to be able to dig in, change the game, stay competitive, keep France scoreless, and get out there and dig a win out in those circumstances, I think is really important. If we'd lost, I wouldn't have said it's massively important. If we'd blown them away in the first half, I would have said, all right, good, cool. What we thought was going to work is working. But I do think that the way we won that is important and more important than the fact that we won it, probably.
Has the manner of that, so I think you're spot on, Johnny, by the way, in terms of the confidence boost that will give them. But has the manner of that victory, Craig, has that changed almost the importance of the fixture this weekend? Now you've had a 40-minute performance where Scotland have done great things and looked very, very, very tidy. Does that now put pressure on this weekend to be, they have to back that up, or else what was the point in all that?
I think for me, Italy showed pretty much we're trying to blood in a few new players to see if they're going to go to the World Cup. I think the second game against France has given us, right, we're going to try this game plan and we're going to see how that works. Oh no, that's not worked. Right, okay, so we're going to go this way and we're going to try and win the game. I think this next one is I would just like to see progression. I'd like to see maybe a strong first half, less rusty. Let's see if we can shove them about a bit. Try the original game plan again and see if we can get anything from it. A little bit more physicality. Let's make sure that the players are the follow up. The follow-up players that are coming into the ruck are there quicker, and we're stopping that glimmer of jackal hope for the opposition team. So I think I would just like to see progression. We know what we got in the second half from Scotland is exactly what we think we can get from Scotland, which is phenomenal. Great skill, great back play, great movement of the ball. What I'd like to see is a little bit more set piece dominance and a little bit more work on the ruck, etc.
Yeah, so I'll ask you both now, and we're going to mix this up. I think I've been inspired by me and Craig's appearances on Scrum of the Earth to mix this up a wee bit. But Johnny, that game there, who are your takeaway forwards? Who were the standout forwards for Scotland?
That's tough, like not to take anything away from the forwards, but I wasn't overly impressed with. There was quite a lot of people who I thought, I have to say, the breakdown work of Matt Fagerson was really, really good. I thought when he came on, Jamie Batty the same, and Rory Darge, his turnover at the end, because you see him put his hands up and go, watch this. So yeah, Fagerson was great both sides of the breakdown. I thought Jamie Batty's defensive breakdown, in particular when he came on, were really good. And Rory Darge, his turnover ability just is exponentially getting better. But yeah, the forwards, particularly the first half, were a bit of a struggle for me, to be honest.
Craig,
Craig.
Do we have agreement with that, or what's your take on the forwards?
Well, first of all, I'll have to shake off this Glasgow bias again. I think you're right. I think we saw some good play from certain players. I think I agree with Jamie Barty. I think he did well, and I think could cost Rory Sutherland his place in the World Cup. But also Dave Cherry came on and played incredibly well, and could cost Ewan Ashman his place. Because I think there's a good chance that Mark Canali will go as well because of his work. He's a calming influence, and also his work in the loose in the first game. So it's an interesting one. But I agree with Johnny. I think the players that he highlighted did a very, very good job.
I think it's great to pick out Dave Cherry though, because obviously,
he looks like you.
He's the housewife's favourite as well, so yeah.
That's it. No, absolutely. For those of you who don't know, I was once told you look exactly like Dave Cherry from behind, which I'm going to take that. I'm running with that. So
from a distance.
Yeah, and person was partially sighted.
In
the dark, from behind from about 40 yards away.
And the boy's Labrador was shaking his head and doing that.
Do you know what? I just thought it had the reflective stripes and stuff and the warning tags on it. I just thought that was like it was just out for a walk, Craig. Like
it's like the Father Ted thing. John is very small. Dave Cherry is very far away.
Very far away. Craig, I'll come to you. Who are the standout backs?
Okay, so I'll throw on my Edinburgh cloak of.
See, this isn't fair because you're going to say exactly who I was going to say, and then you're going to claim I had Glasgow bias because I said Glasgow forwards.
Here he goes. Right.
This is my opportunity for redemption, and you're letting him go first.
I know. I did agree with you, Johnny. So.
I'm keeping it balanced. No bias here. Let's go Glasgow.
I think. Well, let's deal with the elephant in the room. Blair Kinghorn is our 15. He will always be our 15, and he could be better than Stuart Hogg as a 15. I think he's, I think his dalliance at international level at 10 is done, and I think he will be in the 15. The issue is that if he's not starting as a 15, Ollie Smith will start as a 15, and he'll be on the bench waiting because he gives you a really good, as we've always talked about, he gives great option on the wing. He can come in at 10 if need be and things like that. And I will say this once again, and I have said this regularly, and I will say this once again, and this weekend, and also the Italian game, he absolutely proved that Darcy Graham is one of the top 3 wingers in the world. He is a phenomenal winger. There's not one. I would be very, very doubtful if he doesn't go on a Lions tour. He is at this moment in time unstoppable, and I'm incredibly pleased for him. He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Johnny, any advance on those two, or have you got more to add about the?
No, I mean that's mostly what I was going to say. BK15's problem now is that he is by far away our best 15 and our best 23 because he is an outstanding fullback. He always has been. And when people in here, namely me and John, were getting dog's abuse for what we said about Blair Kinghorn, we never said Blair Kinghorn was bad. What we said was Blair Kinghorn was a very good 15 and this 10 experiment didn't make sense. And lo and behold, Blair Kinghorn is incredible 15, and that 10 experiment didn't really make sense. But he has now got experience as an international 10. He had a really good season as a club 10 for Edinburgh. So now if we need to go 6-2, you need to have Blair Kinghorn on the bench because Blair Kinghorn can cover basically every position of the backs. But to do that, you've then got to sacrifice your best fullback because you want him to be starting 15 as well. So he finds himself in a bit of a conundrum again because he is now by far and away the best option in 2 positions. Craig's right about Darcy. He is phenomenal, like mind-blowingly. And to throw another bit of a homer pick, but this time for me and Craig rather than for Glasgow, the ruck speed when George Horn came on notched up significantly. He had another really, really good game. He's got to be, I would think, nailed on now for the World Cup squad, because the way that he got the breakdown going in the second half, it was like night and day. And Ben White is a great player, and Ben White is absolutely deserving of a World Cup place and of being in contention for Scotland's starting scrum half. But what George did to our breakdown and to our ruck speed in the second half on Saturday was phenomenal. And we need to have a serious look at him as a starting scrum half.
I think on you go, Craig. Sorry, on you go.
No, sorry, John. I didn't mean to interrupt, mate, but I did because I talked. But I think I think the big thing with George though is that again George suffers from the same Blair Kinghorn thing. The thing about Blair Kinghorn, you can always move him. So if we have a problem and he starts at 15, and then we have a problem on the wing, or we have a problem at 10, then we can always bring him forward. But that means you have to have an out and out 15 sitting on the bench, or you have to have Hugh Jones or someone like that who has played there before, and you're willing to take a chance on him. I think George is similar, because from what I can see, Ben White starts and George is there to up the pace if we think we can get away with it, if we need it, and that's because I think to start a game for the first 20 minutes at the pace that George Horn brings, I'm not sure an international squad needs that right away, unless we decide that we're going to go and try and be the anti-South Africa by going out and running them around the place like men, like mad, and not take them on in the forwards, But no, I agree with Johnny. This is weird. I'm agreeing with Johnny
on both counts as well.
Yeah, right. Well, we need to sort this out soon. I thought the big difference for me when George Horn arrived, you saw Finn Russell start to thrive. Finn Russell on that quick ball. There was a period of about 50 minutes where I don't think Finn Russell done anything wrong and just went about doing stupidly sublime things, like things that very few tens in the world can do, and just doing them with absolutely no razzmatazz, just like, I'm just going to drop a wee kick in behind here, pin you back and do this and do that. And all whilst it looked quite serious, he looked like he was reveling in the role. We mentioned this in the chat, Johnny, but we didn't dare put this out publicly, and I totally agreed with you. Finn Russell's defensive performance. My word, he was defending like his life depended on it.
Do you know what I think it is? From the like attacking point of view, is I think that George Horn and Sione Tuipulotu, did they not just have the impression of being fun?
Yeah.
I think when Finn's between those two, he's like, you know what, this is actually really good fun. We're just having a laugh.
The banter bus has arrived. Let's go.
Exactly.
I would say, however, and we both, Johnny and I, forgot to say this when we're talking about Darcy Graham. Talk about sublime, doing sublime things. That try that he scored, nobody in the world apart from the top 3 players in the world can do something like that.
Yeah.
That is a try he did not. It's not that he didn't deserve it. That's absolutely wrong. He did deserve it to put himself into there.
Yeah, he didn't have any right to score it.
He had no right to score that, but actually, it was what I liked about the fact is some people, go into those, and if it's a dodgy call, they still get up and they go, "Yes, I scored it. Yeah." You knew that Darcy had scored that because he was absolutely. There was absolutely no, there was no doubt in his mind that he didn't score it. He got up and was celebrating incredibly well. Incredibly.
Yeah, I said
ferociously,
that in the house, and as soon as it was scored, you saw him on screen, and I said, I was watching with my wife, and I was like, yeah, he knows he scored. Like, that is a try.
Yeah.
Some finish. So we'll come to you both. Just conscious of time, but we'll come to you both in terms of we've had two warm up fixtures now. We've had four folks have been evacuated from the squad now. They've been dropped over that. After you saying he should start against France as well, Johnny, Adam Hastings has been let go from the squad. Stafford McDowell, Kyle Rowe, and Cameron Henderson have all been let go as well. Give me two names, Johnny, who are now on a sugary peg after the first two rounds of fixtures.
Javan Sebastian and Luke Crosby. Sorry, Craig.
Solid names. Any particular reason, or do you just think there's better options?
I think Luke Crosby suffers from being in a position where we have ridiculous depth. Like, how do you pick three of the back rows that have played at the moment? Like, how do you pick three to start after these last 2 weeks from Matt Fagerson, Jack Dempsey, Jamie Ritchie, Hamish Watson, and Rory Darge? So then Luke Crosby then becomes like, oh, how do you get him in the squad if you've got all of them in the squad? So I don't think he's necessarily done anything to play himself out. I think he's just been very unlucky. And Javan, to a certain extent, has been unlucky as the flip side of Xander being quite lucky, I think.
Yeah,
to be perfectly honest.
That's quite fair, actually. Yeah. Craig, two names that may or may not find themselves...
Well, I could give you a fair few because I think there's a few players. I agree with Johnny, but because I think Luke Crosby won't be going, but that's not got nothing to do with Luke Crosby not being a good player. He's a phenomenal player. I think he's just unlucky that we've got such talent in the back row, as Johnny has just said. I think Ali Price might not go. And my reason for that is not just to grab headlines, but it's to Jamie Dobie, I think, will go in a George Horn role in 2019. So he's going for the experience. He's going to be there to see international rugby at its best, and maybe come on against is it Romania we play, and so you might see him there. I think Ben White and George Horn are going to be our two nines for the big games. Ali, I'm not pleased to say this because Ali Price has had a phenomenal career. I just think he out of the nines that we have, I think you're going to take two starters or two big game nines, one to replace the other when it's time, and also you're going to take along someone who's going to learn from the experience. And the other one, I think I said it before, Ewan Ashman. I think Ashman may not go, and we'll have Turner, we'll have Cherry, and we'll have Stuart McInally. So it'll be interesting. I have to say, and just regarding Javan Sebastian, I actually think Murphy Walker might not go because Javan came on when Murphy went off and actually performed far better than him. The
only thing I would say that stopped me from saying Murphy loses out instead of Javan is that Murphy could play both sides.
That's true.
If it's a toss-up between those two, I would go with Murphy because he's got a bit more versatility. That's the only thing really separating them from me just now.
Well, I just sorry, John, you go.
No, I was going to say, and the point we've just made about Jamie Dobie probably rings true for Murphy Walker as well.
Very true. I never thought of that. 23 years of age. Javan, for all the best will in the world, I don't think he's necessarily going to see many World Cups, let's be honest. And we all know my view on him as a player. I'm not entirely sold on it, but I can see the argument for he did improve the scrum when he came on for Walker. But I think versatility and that's the thing. Price is in the same boat. It just depends on the way that Townsend wants the squad to look. I think Price, Ben White's injury basically is whether Price goes or not. I totally agree with you, Greg. Yeah, I think he's on the chopping block, but yeah, it's all kind of down to the blend of the squad. But I would be very surprised if Townsend hasn't already got a very good idea of
29, maybe even 30 of the 33 that he's wanting, with a view that they're only in France. So if somebody goes down injured, we're not exactly talking a 24-hour flight out to the middle of nowhere, are we?
They've not got any jet lag to worry about and things like that. I think also you've got. I don't think Josh Bayless will go. Although I really like Josh Bayless, but again he's suffering from the same the same issue that Luke Crosby has. But
who would
Josh
be a
Bayless
Scottish back row just now, eh?
Well, that's it. It seems to. Tell me about it. My son has decided he wants to really, really be a back row, and I'm saying, there's a hell of a lot of back rowers going about at this point in time in Scotland.
Tell you where you need to be playing, son. Tight head. Okay,
and you get an extra steak.
Aye, here you go.
And tight heads are salt of the earth. The linchpin of the
team. You eat what you want when you want, and here's lots of Guinness to wash it down, son. Honestly. So let's just quickly wrap up. Obviously, we've got France again this weekend. We don't know the teams yet, Johnny, but we're kind of guessing we're going to see a more full noise France. Townsend said he has no interest in cotton wool. He's wanting to get this team as many minutes, the team for South Africa basically, as many minutes as they can. What do you see happening at the weekend, and where are we at?
I think if we get a full noise France, that France will win, but I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. I think we've seen what this team can do. I think we'll see a little bit more of what they plan to do this weekend. Townsend might say he's got no interest in cotton wool and he wants to go full noise with the first 15, but there are business decisions to be made by the players as well. So I think a lot of players probably have one eye on not missing the World Cup. If we lose, it's not a massive deal. If we win, it will be great. But I think if we see a more full noise France in France, this will be a much more difficult game. This will give us an idea of the sort of intensity that we're going to be facing against South Africa. But if we don't win it, I'm not massively concerned.
Craig, agree, disagree?
Yeah, I can only really echo what Johnny said, to be honest with you. I think what you might see, and you might see certain players being thrown into what do you want to call it, the A side, the side that's going to be playing the big games. You might see a Healy in at 10 to see how he deals with having Tuipulotu outside him. So you may see a few of those players in there, Javan in at 3, or Murphy Walker, or you might see some of those, a wee smattering of players that are maybe on the borderline of going or not going. But really, I think just as Johnny said, I think you'll see 70-80% of the main squad playing. And again, I agree with Johnny. If we don't win it, I'm not put up nor down. The winning is going to have to be when we have that first game against South Africa. That's when I'm interested in them winning.
So on that very topic, then, Craig, being a Scottish rugby fan is often a cursed, particularly at this time in a World Cup cycle. It's a cursed time where we panic and players go down with injuries, and we always look at, we end up in the group of death. South Africa have not got their problems to seek. A couple of very big names have been omitted from the South African team, the squad due to injury. Pollard, and the other one escapes me just now. De Jager, yeah. Which De Jager's one's a very strange one. Like, comes down with an illness and missing the whole World Cup.
It's a chest infection that turned out to be worse than they thought it was. Like, how much worse does the chest infection get that you miss an entire World Cup?
Entire World Cup, yeah. Like, ruled out
well,
for
it could be
the
something
World Cup.
pretty bad, yeah. If it is a chest, they're maybe just keeping it on the down low. But got the good news this week that Oxenche is Oxenche, however you want to pronounce his name, he's going. So he's got over his pectoral issue. Everyone's talking about these players that are missing from the South African squad. They've got plenty of other clones coming through that can pick us up like Hulk and smash us into the ground. So I don't really I don't think they're going to see a huge chink in their armour. If I'm going to see anyone that we're going to miss, I think it's going to be Pollard. I think
I was going to say that.
I think that's the one player I think that they could have done with having. I think Am hasn't been on a particularly strong vein of form over the last few months. Every time I've seen him play, he's been kind of okay. Not the Am that we've grown to love and love watching. So we'll wait and see.
Wait and see, indeed. We'll call it for now on the Free to Air podcast. We will be back next week. Hopefully, we'll get a more regular schedule of programming. I know we've been jumping about a wee bit just with school holidays and all that stuff that impacts your friendly podcast team. We will be back next week to pour over the Scotland-France game. And we should, in theory, have possibly a World Cup squad by that point, because I know there's decisions being made quite quickly after that game with a view to the squad will be obviously announced way before the Georgia game. So we may have lots and lots to talk about, but we will be back next week. For now, though, we're going to head over to the Patreon, and you'll end it sticking about. We'll get what I'm presuming may be quite fiery. Looking forward to this one, I must admit. But for now, on the free tier, it is good night from me and good night from Craig and Johnny.
Bye. Well,
that was synchronized.
I see. We're becoming one, Johnny and I.
Terrifying. Right, I'm going to grab a beer.
Good plan. I'm going to... I don't know if I've removed the right ones or not.
I'm going to leave that to you.